Move that we approve resolution number 667722.
All right, second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Ms. Yim, welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I can't make one.
We've only been here 6 years.
Yeah, I can't make them. Oh, those are snazzy. Blue suede.
Those are, yeah, those are really cool.
All right, we have a couple of guests in the chambers tonight. I'd like to begin by recognizing our Jefferson County District Attorney in our Bessemer Division, Mrs. Lanice Washington. Madam DA, would you like to come forward and share with us?
Well, good evening, everyone. To the council and to the mayor, thank you for this opportunity to address the council and the mayor as well as the community. My name is Lanice Washington, and I have served this community, which is part of the Bessemer Cutoff, for almost 6 years as district attorney. So, but most of you saying, well, did you say the Bessemer Cutoff? Well, in case you didn't know, there were some parts of Hoover that belongs in the Bessemer Cutoff, such as Lake Cyrus, such as Ross Bridge, such as Lake Crescent, the subdivisions on Stadium Trace. There's quite a bit that belongs to the Bessemer Cutoff. So I am standing here today to ask for your support, to ask for your vote. So you're saying, well, why should I vote for you again? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Since I have been in office, I've initiated a number of programs that have benefited our community all over the Bessemer Cutoff. And I'm not going to go into one by one, but I have some cards on the back that tells you the different programs that have been initiated since my administration. I basically govern under a three-pronged mission that is promoting public safety, maintaining the community trust, and promoting our youth for the future. And that's what I have governed on, and that's what every one of my projects reflect. I'm just going to name maybe two, but Operation Python, in terms of promoting public safety, was a program that was initiated by me. It was the first DA-initiated task force program, and it was an effort to combat violent crime in certain areas in the Bessemer Cutoff. So in a 3-month period, it was a multi-agency effort, and it was DEA, FBI, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, Bessemer PD. It was multi-agency, and everyone cooperated together for 90 days. And we got a lot of bad guys off the street, people who were had outstanding warrants. There were guns, money. We got those off the street in 90 days, 126 arrests. I did it again in 2021, and we had 156 people, bad guys, that were taken off the streets. So that's one part of my promoting public safety. As well, I have Project Safe Neighborhood grants that we were able to get to put cameras in areas that are underserved with police presence. Well, no, that's not going to stop the crime. However, you know, snitches get stitches. So, according to the community, which makes it really hard to prosecute cases. So what we do, those cameras are used as devices that help as intelligence for police officers to investigate crime. So even if someone don't want to say anything, and oftentimes I do understand that they live in a certain neighborhood, and they are fearful of those people that live in the neighborhood, I do understand. So those cameras help police officers to get intelligence to apprehend the suspect that created all this havoc. And there are a number of programs, like I said, I will not go through each and every one, but I have worked since day one, since 2017, from even programs now that we have, the homicide support group. Since I've been campaigning, I was pushing that. The Jefferson County Community Food Box that happens every second Friday of the month at DHR. So I'm asking for your support, and I'm asking for your vote, but I'm not just asking, I want you to look me up and see who I am and see what I stand for. And at the end of the day, I'm sure that you will be happy to elect me again, and I would be more than happy to serve. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. We're also happy to have with us tonight Mr. Jonathan Spann. Mr. Spann is seeking the circuit judge position in Shelby County. Mr. Spann, would you like to come forward, please?
So just briefly, I'm Jonathan Spann. Thank you, council. Thank you, mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here. Some of you, much like our DA, may be saying, why is someone running for office in Shelby County here? But as you certainly know, a large portion of Hoover is now in Shelby County. I mean, it's one of those unique jurisdictions. I don't know of any other, frankly, that, you know, if you have a court case that is appealed from city court, it depends on where it happened within the city of Hoover. That could go to the Birmingham Division of Jefferson County, to those county courts. It could go to the Bessemer Division, or it could go to Shelby County. So that's why I'm here. I live just on the fringes of Hoover and Shelby County. Certainly, you know, enjoy Hoover and you know, all the business opportunities and things that it brings to the 280 side of town where I live. Just briefly, a little bit about me. I graduated from University of Alabama in 1999, graduated law school in 2003 from the University of Alabama. I've been practicing for 19 years. I have litigated thousands and thousands of cases from beginning to end. I have tried hundreds of cases. I could not tell you the number. And I've tried cases on all sides of the spectrum, whether it be as a special prosecutor, as a defense lawyer, civil cases, whether they be bench or jury trials, you know, and have even served as a special judge or judicial referee and mediator in cases. So I have seen it from all sides, which I think puts me in a unique perspective to ask for your vote as judge, because judges, you know, even though they have to be politicians, state judges are elected just like DAs and council members and things of that nature, mayors. Judicial candidates are not supposed to come up here and promise you anything other than that we will follow the law and be fair. And I do promise you that I will follow the law and be fair to all the citizens, to all the residents, to the city, to state officials. I will listen carefully, I will follow the law, and I'll be fair. And again, I approach that from I think, a unique position, having handled all sorts of cases in my legal career from all different vantage points. I don't come from just one side of things, always being defense, always being prosecution, always being plaintiff, always being defendant. So I do promise you fairness, and that I'll work hard for the citizens of Hoover, and especially those that reside in Shelby County, where I'll be hopefully circuit judge. And I ask for your support and your vote on May 24th.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We're now ready to consider our consent agenda. The consent agenda is offered as a way to take items 6 through 13 in one block motion and one block vote. Is there any item that the council would like moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda? I will ask if there's any member of the public who is here to speak on behalf of items 6 through 13. If you have an interest in items 6 through 13, we'll be happy to remove it before we consider these as a block. Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Corley, if you'll read the items on the consent agenda.
Item number 6 is the approval of minutes for the March 3rd, 2022 work session and the March 7th, 2022 meeting. Resolution number 6670-22 approves an alcohol license for Gulf Fuels LLC doing business as Galleria Encore Mobile at 1767 Montgomery Highway for the sale of 050 retail beer off premises only and 070 retail table wine off premises only. Item number 8, resolution 667122 appoints and authorizes Council President John Lyda as the voting delegate for the city of Hoover for the Alabama League of Municipalities for the annual business meeting. Item 9, resolution 6672-22 authorizes Mayor Brocato to execute an easement agreement with Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless in substantially the form attached to the resolution. Item 10, Resolution 667322 appoints 2 members to the Industrial Development Board of the City of Hoover, namely Wendy Boyan to fill the unexpired term of James Robinson and Don Irwin to fill the unexpired term of Jeffrey Pomeroy. Resolution 667422 authorizes Mayor Brocato to enter into an agreement with Meals on Wheels of Central Alabama in the form attached to the resolution. Item 12, Resolution number 667522 determines that certain personal property, namely 30 metal halide light fixtures, are not needed for municipal purposes and authorizes the disposal of such property by donation to Hoover City Schools. Item number 13, Resolution 667622 accepts improvements within the right-of-way at the multiple Lake Wilburn phases listed in the resolution, as well as portions of the Stadium Trace Parkway extension as listed in the resolution.
Mr. President, I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval of all items on the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. We'll now move to our regular agenda, beginning with item number 14, ordinance number 22-2557 for a second reading. Mr. Corley.
Yes, this ordinance amends the flood damage prevention ordinance of the City of Hoover to revise certain specific design and construction standards.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 22-2557.
Second.
We have a motion and second. This does require a public hearing, so we'll open up the public hearing and ask if there's any member of the council who has a question or comment on the ordinance. We'll now ask if there's any member of the public here who would like to speak on this ordinance under consideration. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. 6 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. We'll now move to item number 15, ordinance number 22-2555. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance amends the zoning ordinance of the City of Hoover concerning administration and review procedures, definitions, zoning district specifications, off-street parking and loading requirements, and supplemental regulations.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 22-2555.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Martin, would you please come forward on this one? I believe there's some items that were discussed in work session. By the way, thanks you to Councilman Posey for leading that for us on Thursday evening. But I believe there's some changes we'll need to review tonight, correct, Mr. Martin?
Not to the zoning ordinance. We do have some changes to the property maintenance code section of the International Building and Construction Code.
Okay. All right. All right. Any questions or comments from the, thank you, Mr. Corley. You told me it was number 15. You did. That's okay. Any questions or comments? This is a public hearing. Any questions or comments from members of the body on item number 15?
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Martin, can you go over the off-street parking changes? I remember we discussed this a few weeks back. You can highlight if you need to, but I'm good.
All right, will do. Oh, you're okay?
Yep, my memory came back to me. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Oh, you okay, Mr. Middlebrooks? Okay, very good. Any other questions from the body? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw? Aye. Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. That's 6 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries and that ordinance is adopted. We'll now move to item number 16, ordinance number 22-2558. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance provides for certain improvements to drainage areas, or provides for the ordering of plans for certain improvements to drainage areas on properties in the area to the south of Lorna Road at the intersection of Highway 31 and the City of Hoover, Alabama.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 22-2558.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the body on item number 16? Questions or comments from the audience? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for my customary 3 minutes. I represent Tria River Chase Village, the landowner that owns the large parcel at the intersection of Lorna and 31, Best Buy, former Whole Foods, that large parking lot and area. That's my client's property. And I come to speak, albeit briefly, as to this ordinance and to interpose some objections, namely that Chapter 48 of Title 11, which this ordinance still cites, does not authorize the city to do what is being contemplated here. The problem, as I understand it, is that there is water running over Highway 31 because of a collapsed underground storm drain pipe. You've probably gone by and seen that. I think there's now a wooden privacy fence that's been built up around the sinkhole that is underneath Panda Express's drive-through. That property, that parcel, is owned by our neighbor, Regina Investment Corporation. So the sinkhole that's causing the flooding, which has led the city to this ordinance, is on our neighbor's land. And so my client, which has no objection to the repair being made, wants to make sure the city understands that if the repair is made by the city to Regina's collapsed pipe, it can only be made lawfully under Chapter 47 of Title 11. What the city is actually contemplating doing is to abate a public nuisance. That is the issue. The danger to the public, the use of police resources to divert traffic and so forth. The problem that's being caused is a nuisance for the travelers on Highway 31. And so my client's position is that the city likely can make this repair, even though it is the expenditure of public money to go onto private property and make a repair to a privately owned structure. It's likely permissible under the public nuisance statute, the city's power to abate a public nuisance. That's Chapter 47 of Title 11. The problem with Chapter 48 of Title 11, the ordinance cites, is that that is the public improvement statute. What the city is planning to do, at least we gather, we'll see what Saint and Associates comes up with, is not a public improvement. It is the expenditure of tax funds on a private repair to private structure, and the AG's office has already opined that Chapter 48 doesn't extend that kind of authority to the city. So my client interposes that objection and urges the city to consider carefully the legal basis for the repairs, not improvements, but the repairs that are being contemplated even in advance of Saint and Associates actually being hired to prepare those plans. Thank you.
Mr. McLeod, we've enjoyed making your acquaintance over the last few weeks, but just for the record, would you state your name and address, please?
Certainly. Aaron McLeod, 1984 Shallowby Way, Hoover, Alabama. And as I say, I'm here as a representative, as an attorney for my client, Tria River Chase Village.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Corley, does the city have a legal position on that?
I'll just add, Mr. McLeod has said the same thing at the last few meetings, and he's correctly pointed out that they're in litigation with their neighbors over that whole situation. We disagree with his position and interpretation of that law. This isn't the forum to necessarily argue that, but this ordinance, I'll remind you tonight, is simply to order the plans to be prepared and then to set a public hearing for June the 6th. So.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from members of the public? Very well. We have a motion and a second for adoption of the ordinance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. That's 6 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Item number 17, resolution number 6557-22. Mr. Corley.
This resolution approves a conditional use approval for the tenant to hold church Bible studies at the property located at 3241 Lorna Road.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 655722.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This also requires a public hearing, so we will open that hearing and ask if there are any members of the council who would like to speak or ask questions of the resolution. Any member of the public who would be here like to speak on behalf of this resolution? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a motion and second for approval of the resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 18, ordinance number 22-2556. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance adopts the 2021 building codes and the 2020 edition of the National Electric Code with amendments, and I'm going to read some more amendments to that one. This was item 15 on Thursday night. It's item 18 tonight. But first, section 304.2 will be deleted in its entirety and replaced with the following. 304.2, protective treatment, exterior surfaces, including but not limited to doors and window frames, cornices, porches, trim, balconies, decks, and fences shall be maintained in a condition free from decay, decomposition, rot, deterioration, corrosion, or any other defect that renders a building or structure insecure from the elements or pests, structurally unsound, or unable to fulfill the function for which the structure was erected. Exterior wood surfaces other than decay-resisting wood shall be protected from the elements and decay by painting or other protective covering or treatment. Siding and masonry joints, as well as those between the building envelope and the perimeter of the windows, doors, and skylights, shall be maintained weather-resistant and watertight. Where required, metal surfaces subject to rust or corrosion shall be coated to inhibit such rust and corrosion, and surfaces with rust or corrosion shall be stabilized and coated to inhibit future rust and corrosion. Section 304.8 is deleted in its entirety and replaced with the following. Decorative features, cornices, belt, courses, corbels, terracotta trim, wall facings, and similar features shall be properly anchored and maintained free from decay, decomposition, rot, deterioration, corrosion, and any other defect that compromises the safe condition of the same. Section 304.9 is deleted in its entirety and replaced with the following. 304.9, overhang extensions including but not limited to canopies, marquees, signs, metal awnings, fire escapes, standpipes, and exhaust ducts shall be properly anchored and maintained free from decay, decomposition, rot, deterioration, corrosion, or any other defect that compromises the safe condition of the same. Where required, all exposed surfaces of metal or wood shall be protected from the elements and against decay or rust by periodic application of weather coating materials such as paint or similar treatment. Section 304.13 is deleted in its entirety and replaced with the following. 304.13, window, skylight, and door frames. Every window, skylight, door, and frame shall be maintained and kept free of cracks, holes, decay, decomposition, rot, deterioration, corrosion, or any other defect that renders the structure insecure from the elements or pests. Section 304.13.1, regarding glazing, is to be kept as is. Section 304.13.2, openable windows will remain as is. Section 304.15 is deleted in its entirety and replaced with the following. Exterior doors shall be maintained and kept free of cracks, holes, decay, decomposition, rot, deterioration, corrosion, or any other defect that renders the structure insecure from the elements or pests. And finally, the IRC code would delete Chapter 11 regarding energy efficiency is deleted in its entirety. This section will be addressed once the state adopts a residential energy code.
That was
Thank you.
a
That's all
lot
the
there, sir.
changes.
Given that this constitutes a second first reading, I move to suspend the rules for immediate consideration on this item.
Second.
We have a motion and second for suspension of the rules. I'll remind the members this does require a unanimous vote. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. 6 ayes, 0 nays for suspension of the rules. Now we'll consider adoption of the ordinance tonight. I assume the first reading can,
Well, we'll have a second reading. I won't repeat the amendments I just read, but this ordinance number 22-2556 adopts the 2021 building codes and the 2020 edition of the National Electric Code with the amendments set forth therein and as read.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 22-2556.
Second.
we have a motion and second for adoption of the ordinance. This requires a public hearing. We will open the public hearing and ask if there's any member of the council that has a question or comment on the ordinance. Any member of the public here who would like to speak about the changes read in this particular ordinance? Hearing and seeing none, we will close the public hearing. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Shaw?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. 6 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. We'll now move to items number 19 and 20. These items will have first readings only. There will be no action taken by members of the council tonight, beginning with ordinance number 22-2559. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance provides for the levy of municipal taxes for general and municipal purposes for the city of Hoover to begin on October 1st, 2022.
And then item number 20, ordinance number 22-2560. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance authorizes Mayor Mercado to enter into a franchise agreement with Spectrum Southeast LLC, doing business as Charter Communications.
Thank you, sir. It brings us to the end of our agenda. Tonight, we have a very special treat. Chief Hind is here, along with Fire Marshal Thornton, and we have the residents of River Chase and the residents of Greystone, particularly Station 3 in River Chase, Station 8 in Greystone, have a brand-new fire engine that went into service just a few weeks ago. And tonight, those engines are on site here at Hoover City Hall. So at the conclusion of this meeting, each of the members and each of you are welcome for a grand tour of new engines 3 and 8 that will be outside in the parking lot. Chief, are they here? Yes, sir. Lower parking lot. So yeah, we'd be delighted if each of you would have interest in coming and seeing those engines. May even let you blow the horn and blow some water. Okay. Any questions or comments, general comments from the members?
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, this past Friday, we had a government day for Hoover High and Spain Park High School SGA. A number of members of the council, the mayor, Mr. Rice, and city staff all participated in that, and I just want to express my thanks to that. I think the students thoroughly enjoyed it. They were engaged, and they got a lot out of it. I appreciate y'all doing that. I want to give a special thanks to Ms. Posey Joseph, excuse me. She moderated the event. She set the tone early and kept the kids engaged, and she was just fantastic, a superstar, Ms. Posey. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from the council? Very good. Any members of the public wish to speak tonight? Yes, sir. Back in the back.
Hello again. Richard Parker, 2618 Creekview Drive. This might be my last time to come to the council meeting. I can't guarantee that, but I'd just like to say a couple of things about Creekview Drive. Very disappointed in the city council members, very disappointed in the mayor, and most of all disappointed in the city of Hoover. I have, and many of my neighbors have, come to many, many times about this issue on Creekview Drive. And all I got was a form letter from the city of Hoover. No one came to my door. No one came to my house. No one talked to me personally. I went to the county site and I pay $2,000 a year city taxes to the city of Hoover. What do I get out of that? I don't get police, I get fire department, I get all the things, but do I get any support to help with something that's sort of like a gray area? No, none. I hired a landscape architect this past week. He's come out and looked at the property. I've got a earth mover coming in probably next week. And who is to help? None of you guys. And whoever is in charge of the engineering department needs to be fired. I don't know his name. I could care less what his name is. It's wrong that he has not come to me and asked, Mr. Parker, what can we do to help you? Maybe do this, maybe do that. I have power lines running through there. They're in the water. As far as the poles, I have telephone lines. I have sewer line. The sewer line runs through there, and they say it's private property. Why don't I just cut off all the sewer lines, cut off the telephone poles, and cut off the creek and make a lake? I can't do that. Why can't I do that? Because it's wrong, and it's not a good Hoover citizen. So all I want to say is I've come to you many, many times and got no response. And I'm just very disappointed in the whole situation. And I know people are thinking about suing the city of Hoover. I don't want to go down that path. I believe in the city of Hoover. I believe in they'll do the right thing. I was listening to some of the things that the guy that's running, he says, follow the law, understand that, be fair, and work hard. Maybe you're doing one of those things, saying, oh, I can't come on private property. But the other two things, you're failing miserably, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Parker, I need to correct you. You did receive a response. So the fact that you said you did not receive response is incorrect.
A
So
written
if
response. I
that-
said I got a written response.
You did receive response.
Yeah.
All 390 citizens who have filed an issue with us, they're getting a response. And because you have been faithful in coming to see us, you were prioritized high. That's why you got your response. Now, we understand the response that's being evaluated by the city, engineers, and provided, everyone's not going to like that response. But you did receive a response. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and
Sir, next. Thank you, sir. Next.
Yeah.
Good evening, I'm Ron Nesbitt, and unfortunately, I live on Creekview Drive also. But this is a different situation, perhaps, than what Mr. Parker was just saying. So I have spoke to Chris Reeves about this problem, and it's just come up like literally in the last week. So what is happening is my property is 2644 Creekview Drive. My neighbor is 2640, Mr. Paul LeMay, Creekview Drive. And between our 2 yards runs a big drainage pipe, maybe similar to the Panda Express thing that was mentioned earlier, that takes all the stormwater off Creekview Drive, and it routes through there. And why is this drainage pipe in my yard? Well, I really wish it wasn't, but we're the low ground, so I guess that's why it makes sense for it to be there. But that pipe during last Wednesday's storm had some sort of deformation and flaw. So our yard flooded with the stormwater coming off of Creekview Drive. So normally, like Mr. Parker, and we all suffer along that creek from Padding Creek rising and the unnamed creek that goes behind Mr. Parker's house rising and doing damage. But this was actually the stormwater coming off of Creekview Drive itself, overtopping the curb and flowing through our yard and Paul LeMay's yard. Now, I did call the city engineer on Thursday morning right after the storm and reported it, and they sent somebody out like within an hour, right? So that was very nice. And then today I met with two other city engineer employees who came out, and I spoke to Mr. Chris Reeves on the phone. And since the original rainstorm on Wednesday, there was another storm on Friday, which really wasn't as much rain, but during that storm, where the pipe is originally, we had about a 2-foot depression right above where the pipe enters into the unnamed creek behind our yard. But on Friday's storm, adjacent to that depression, which actually got a little bit lower, the earth actually moved, like opened up and exposed the pipe. Like you can look down in it and see the drainage pipe. You can see a sewer pipe going across the top of the drainage pipe. And it's just eating away at our yard. It's undermined the fence. The fence is actually, in midair, supported by the rest of the fence, but the concrete footings for sections of the fence are now like 3 or 4 feet out of the ground. This new sinkhole is about 9 feet deep, 6 feet long, and 4 feet wide. And I'm fearful for tomorrow night when we get an inch or two more of rain, what's going to happen, because I know the rain's going to flow through our front yard. So this weekend, we take responsibility, a lot of us along Creekview Drive, like Mr. Parker, in the first 2 weeks of April, we're paying $10,000 to have the brickwork raised around our house. 2 or 3 months ago, we paid over $1,000 to have the unnamed creek cleaned out with an excavator so water flows. So we're doing all these things, but this, where this pipe has failed underneath our yard, that's beyond, our financial resources to deal with that. And truthfully, no water that lands on our yard during normal times ever goes into that pipe. That pipe is carrying stormwater off of Creekview Drive. And on the most recent storms, like I said, the water is actually overtopping Creekview Drive. And the people who come down the bluff, from the direction of Mr. Parker's house, that's a pretty steep road. They go pretty fast. So they're hitting this water that's like 6 or 7 inches deep. That's kind of an unsafe condition.
Thank you, sir.
So
let me ask, we have Mr. Reeves, it sounds like we've been responsive. Is there an official response that we can give him once we're able to determine either public or private issue? Very good. So expect a response in writing, just like Mr. Parker received from us in the coming days, okay?
well, I appreciate that, and I just want to reemphasize, though, that you know, this situation, again, is not water that's hurting our house, that lands on our property. Like, we take responsibility for that, and we're dealing with Patton Creek on our own behind our house. I'm not here to complain about that. Just here to say, hey, you know, like, we need the city of Hoover's help to fix the storm drain that runs underneath our property that clears all the water off Creekview Drive.
Very good. Mr. Corley, if we could prioritize that in your office too, we'd appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nesbitt. Anyone else like to speak tonight? Yes, ma'am. Come on down.
I'm Linda Bishop, and I'm not obviously connected to any of the other flooding. I live on Mayflower Drive. I live 2 blocks off Patton Chapel Road. You go down Frank Drive to get to Mayflower. I'm sure that no one from Hoover Council has been down Frank lately, but it is being washed away. My yard has been washed away. 2 people came out there, but because I'm not connected to a creek, a water source, other than, as I explained when I came before, I've lived there 50 years now. We built 50 years ago. Never had a water problem for 40-something years until we let the sewer come through our property to help a lady on Buttercup that could not deal with the problem she had. Ever since then, we've had a water problem. We have a drainage ditch, and it was very deep when we built. My husband lined it with big rocks to keep it from washing, just in case. Never was a problem until the sewer came through. They did not rebuild the wall of the ditch. It just laid over and put rocks on it. So ever since, my backyard and my driveway and my house is like a lake if we have heavy water. Well, I don't have to tell you what the flood, the 6 did, but it washed everything in my yard, big boulders. There's a drainage, there's a hole at the base of the ditch, a tile. Those big rocks, there is no telling how many of those rocks have washed in that tile now that goes under the street and down the other side. There's a lot that are there. If they get in there, it will be stopped up. Now, that was bad enough when they came through with the sewer that it started flooding. I had people come out and look at it, but didn't think it was a problem. But I never had flooding before. Then we widened Patton Chapel Road to put a turn lane. It's been great. We needed it. But what the engineers did that, and I don't know who they are, but I can tell you, I wouldn't have them. They may have come out there and looked when the flooding came, when I told about it before. But they have directed all of the water from Patton Chapel Road down a drain. It drains one way and the other. It's all down. It's coming from across Patton Chapel Road, down through there. It's like a river coming across. And I talked to one of my neighbors today when I was making pictures of the wash that has come under Frank Drive. It is so deep on the right side of that road right now. It's like a river. If you get your wheels off in there, you're going to have a wreck.
Ms. Bishop, pardon my interruption. Is Frank Drive, Frank Avenue?
Right. Well, it was Frank Avenue, then they made it Frank, it was Frank Drive. Now they've made it Frank something else.
Yeah. I'm your neighbor 2 blocks over on Tamasee.
On Tamasee.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm very familiar with that. Is Frank on our list, Mr. Reeves, to be evaluated?
I doubt it. I got no
Mr. Reeves?
response.
Okay. Ms. Bishop, did we get her address? Very good. We will check and see, and we have your address. And could we?
I might mention, I've already spent quite a bit of money. It washed a retaining wall completely down.
Yes, ma'am.
Destroyed shrubs and everything.
We will ensure it's on our list to evaluate and also get you a response.
I would appreciate it, and I've got plenty of pictures and more today.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak tonight? Ms. Ritchie?
Rebecca Ritchie, 4911 Twin Pine Circle. We had the surveyors come out about a little over 2 weeks ago, but I've still not heard from the engineers. Is there any idea when they're going to call and they're going to come out?
Mr. Rice, Mr. Reeves, any update on timeline?
Yes, sir. The engineers should be in contact with Ms. Ritchie. I just spoke with them today. They should have that study finalized by the 1st of May, and then they'll contact you and your neighbors and we'll go over there.
Did you say the 1st of May?
First of May.
Okay. I don't know if y'all can, yeah, I know y'all don't really answer questions, but in the old Winn-Dixie parking lot, there are the old Winn-Dixie building. They've been pulling out stuff and redoing the parking lot and everything. And I was just curious as to who was going in there, because I've heard some things, and some things I've heard are not.
Revere Controls.
Rear control.
Revere?
Rear controls.
Yeah, they're relocating from
Yeah.
Rocky
I know,
Ridge to.
Rocky Ridge Road.
Yes, ma'am.
And do they have a conditional use?
I'm not sure a conditional use is required.
Not for that business.
Okay, I
No.
just know it wasn't rezoned, or at least we never got anything for it to be rezoned.
I think zoning is appropriate for that space. Is that right, Mr. Knight? Okay.
Research and development businesses can go in the C2 zone.
Very good.
Okay. Well, I just know it was a different name before when they tried to move in the same general area, not that property. And they wanted light industrial. And I was just hoping that light industrial is not going in a half a mile from my house.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ritchie. Anyone else? Very good. We're adjourned.